pencils and markers.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Coach LT or LaTonya Smith, and I am the CEO and founder of Speak Life to Youth and Children International Corporation, or SLYC, SLYC International. And today is Cooking Basics 101. And I'm going to be showing you all how to make butter pecan cookies. I call them pecan sandies, but butter pecan cookies. And before we get started, there are a couple of things. We are SLYC International, and we have a website, www.slycinternational.com. And we have various programs, various classes that we have. We have various events periodically throughout the year. We also have a Cash App if you want to give, and it's $SPEAK, capital SPEAK, the number 4, capital S, capital L, capital Y, capital C. You can also mail cashier's checks or money orders to P.O. Box 1204, Villa Rica, Georgia, 30180. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So, couple of things. With the butter pecan cookies, I like to prep everything before I get started baking. So once I start mixing up everything, it runs smoothly. So for the recipe, go ahead and preheat your oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's a difference between gas ovens and electric ovens. So if you do not know how your oven burns, some ovens burn hotter, some burn lower than what it's actually set. So I would advise you, if you're going to do a lot of baking, that you get an oven thermometer so you can actually see where your oven is. Like, for instance, my oven is set at 360, but inside it is at 350. My oven burns a little bit hotter than normal. I've tried to calibrate it, doesn't work. So I said, oven thermometer will work just fine. So with this cookie recipe, which is one of my favorites, you would need 3/4 cup of chopped pecans. You would need 1/2 cup of butter or margarine, room temperature, either or. You need 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/8 teaspoon of salt, and clear decorating sugar or granulated sugar. And I'll explain why you need that next. Let me explain the difference with all-purpose flour and self-rising flour. With all-purpose flour, it's naked flour. So most recipes call for all-purpose flour, where you would have to add in your salt, your baking soda, or your baking powder. Self-rising flour has all of that in there. However, the difference is self-rising flour, it doesn't tell you the amount of the salt, baking powder, and soda. So with this recipe, you would need to use all-purpose flour instead of self-rising. So with the recipe, so I would took out a 1/2 cup of butter, which is a stick of butter. And it's best to use a rubber spatula when your butter is soft. So you dump that into your mixer and you scrape excess butter, put it in your mixer. So now you can make these cookies with a hand mixer or a bowling mixer. I wouldn't suggest try to mix them manually with your hand because it's going to be a little bit difficult to do. So I have a KitchenAid mixer here. And we're going to cream it. So while that's creaming, I'm going to go ahead and measure, which I should have measured everything before, but I'm showing the youth and kids how to measure. This recipe calls for 1/3 cup of sugar. So I will get 1/3 of a cup, and I take a butter knife and I scrape the excess off because you don't want it to be too sweet. Put it in your bowl. Set that to the side. So 1/3 cup of sugar. It's not a whole lot. So when you're cooking or mixing something, especially cake or cookies or brownies, there's usually a particular method that I learned as a kid, which works very well. You beat your butter, which means you're fattening, whether it's oil or lard or butter. Add the sugar. Slowly, turn your mixer down. Choose empty. Take your spatula and you're gonna scrape and make sure it mixed together. Turn the mixer off. And I'll show you how it looks once we mix everything together. If your recipe calls for eggs, this is the time when you'll do the eggs. You will do the eggs one at a time, but this doesn't require eggs, so we're gonna go to vanilla flavor. The recipe calls for 1 teaspoon of vanilla. I usually don't measure because I just eye it because I'm used to baking, but for this case, I put a measure. And there's 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavor, and you let that mix well. That to the side. So now it's very simple. You're gonna measure your flour.
Measure
Keep on the flour in this. Hello, everyone.
Say hello,
And
everyone.
it calls for 1 cup of flour. So I take a spoon. What you don't want to do is pack the flour in a cup. You do not want to pack the flour. So I take a spoon, fill, and kind of stop a little bit and scrape the excess off and put it in. And that's all the flour you need. So also, the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of chicken. 3/4 cup. If you don't mind, can you mute your phones? So, extra pecans. I love pecans. I'm from Florida. I'm from the Panhandle area. Pecan trees were very plentiful, so I grew up on them. I love them. So I mix that in with the flour. Set that to the side. So we did prep and do some other cookies. So I'm going to put those in the oven. While those are baking, so we can mix. So far, this is how it looks. So now, you take the extra off the big kettle, because you want to make sure everything mixes well. And I have some helpers here today. I have LaTonya Horton, who's one of my SLYC supporter parents. And she has her son who's doing the recording for me. Quavion Thurman, we call him Chef Quavo. He is a senior this year. He will be graduating. He is my chef, and I'm telling y'all now, his ribs are awesome. If you're in the Villa Rica, Carrollton, Douglasville area, if you need a rib guy, he's your guy. And then we have the little man, Isaiah Horton Jr., we call him Pooh. You'll see him momentarily when we start pressing the cookies out. So I'm going to slowly add the pecans and flour. Oh yeah, I didn't forget. It also calls for 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Instead of a pinch, I like to measure to be on the safe side. So 1/8 teaspoon of salt. Teaspoons, measuring cups are what you need to bake. Also, I want to talk about, it says chopped pecans. Now you can use a chopper, electric chopper, or food processor to chop the pecans, or you can use the manual chopper. I've had this for a number of years. And what you would do with the manual chopper, old school, you put the pecans and your nuts in this top part, put the top on, and you roll until it chops. Using a food processor is actually easier, So I would prefer you to use that. If you're under 12, 13 years old, you would need your parents' supervision for that because it does have a sharp blade. So now I'm going to mix the pecans and the flour in. So get all the flour out. This won't come out on its own. So do the scraping. So it is mixing very well. And I'm going to show you what it looks like momentarily. You want to make sure it's all mixed in. There's no butter that you can see. There's no flour that you can see. Everything is mixed in. You can't tell the difference. So everything is mixed. And it's a thick batter or cookie dough. So you have to scrape it off your pedal. And if any kids online, in order to get credit for participating in the class, in the chat box, I need you to enter your name, your birth month and year, and you would need to have your camera on. That's the only way we can verify that you on the class participating, and then you may be eligible to receive an award or rewards toward the end of the month or toward the end of school. So this is how the batter actually looks. It's quite thick. So now I'm going to take the mixer out the way, because now comes the fun part. You got to roll the cookies on the cookie sheet. So I'm moving the mixer out the way. I have air bake cookie sheets or baking sheets. You don't have to use air bake, you use what you have. This recipe does not require you to grease the pan, so I usually just pick up batter and roll because I eye it. You will take a tablespoon, rounded tablespoon, get you some batter, and you're gonna roll to a little ball. Now, extra granulated sugar, you're going to roll it, and then you're going to put the cookie sugar side up. Let me explain. Because you have to press the cookie, I take a regular glass. I like using glasses with a design, and you're going to press it just a little bit so that you can see the little design. Now, some of the cookies, you can put a pecan half on a cookie. You don't have to. That's just something I like to do. So, Mr. Isaiah, I need your assistance, sir. So he is going to be our presser as I roll the cookies out.
Hello.
Tell them how old you are, what school you go to.
I'm 9 years old and I go to Sand Hill Elementary.
And he's a very smart little kid. He also loves to dance. And you want to roll them like walnut, smaller than a walnut size. Depending on how big you want your cookie, you can roll them smaller or you can roll them larger. And you put sugar side up after you roll it in the sugar. And these cookies are already sweet, so you don't have to roll the entire cookie. So we're going to press a piece of pecan in that one. So right now we have some cookies baking, and they'll be out shortly. But when you're cooking or baking, it's always good to clean as you cook or clean as you bake. So when everything is done, you won't have a whole lot to do left in the kitchen. One recipe generally makes close to about 3 dozen cookies, which is about 36. Most of the time I would double the recipe, and this is where math actually comes into play when you're cooking and using a recipe. So for instance, the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of pecan. If I want to double it, y'all mathematicians out there, when you multiply fractions, 3/4 times 2 is actually 1.5 cups. So instead of doing 3/4 cup and then another 3/4 cup, learn how to do the basic multiplication of fractions and subtractions and all that, because if you want to half a recipe, the same thing. If you want to double or triple the recipe. So it's good to learn math. Now, I was not an excellent algebra student. That was actually my worst subject. But I did graduate high school and I did graduate college. And math, basic algebra does come into play in certain arenas, such as if you want to be a chef or engineer or a carpenter, you would need an accountant, you would need that. So let's see what our cookies are. They're almost done. So are there any questions? You can ask a question or put it in the chat, and my young man on the computer will read the question out. But again, welcome to Speak Life to Youth and Children. And we do cooking classes every couple of months. At the end of this month, we have a youth financial literacy class with one of my friends from Florida. She has her own financial consultant business. It's important that our youth learn about money matters now, especially credit. So I'm gonna ask Miss LaTonya to come and talk about her taste of the butter pecan cookie and what she thought. She never tasted them before. So you can roll them out as big as you want. You can actually do them a little bit smaller. And she's coming now.
Hello. That was good. They taste kind of like the pecan sandies, but not it's not exactly like the pecan sandies, but they kind of right there in the line with it, but it's better because it's homemade.
And they're delicious when they're hot.
Yeah, I burnt my tongue.
I do apologize. So any questions out there in Zoom land? No questions.
No question.
They can unmute themselves and ask a question.
What did you use as a cookie cutter?
Say again, talk louder.
What did you use as a cookie cutter?
Actually, these require cookie cutters. The dough is thick enough that you can actually, this is the dough. Can you see the dough? It's thick enough that you pull the dough out and just roll it. These do not require a cookie cutter. Maybe the next time when I do another class on cookies, I'll do one that requires cookie cutters. But there are several recipes out there that you can actually use if you want to do the cookie cutter. Like the Christmas cookies, we know the holidays are coming up, or for those who celebrate Halloween, the Halloween cookies, or those who celebrate Easter cookies or Valentine's Day. So this particular recipe does not require a cookie cutter. It will require you to use your hands quite a bit because you're rolling the dough, but it doesn't stick very well. See my hand? It doesn't stick.
Okay, thank you.
So if you're under 12 and your parents are not accustomed to you baking, you will need your parents to assist you with certain things when making these cookies, especially when putting it in the oven to bake and coming out of the oven. We don't want you to burn yourself. So let's do a recap. This recipe calls for a 3/4 cup of pecans chopped, 1/2 cup of butter, room temperature, 1/3 cup of sugar, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract or flavoring, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And have your oven set at 350 degrees. Preheat the oven before you start mixing the cookies. Preheat. So these cookies are going to be a little bit larger than what I normally do, but it's okay. I got company that they can eat them. I don't need to eat all of them. So tell me what state, if you're from Georgia, tell me if you're from Georgia, if you're from Florida, tell me if you're from Florida. I don't necessarily want you to tell me where at in Georgia and where at in Florida. I'm always safety conscious about my kids.
I'm from Florida.
Where?
Florida.
Okay, Florida. I'm from Florida. I'm from Tallahassee, Quincy area. I grew up in Quincy. I graduated from Florida State. And I have a cousin. My first cousin is the head football coach at FAMU. I have a nephew that works, I believe, at NIMS Middle School. And his wife works at Jefferson County Schools. So by y'all participating, your name goes today, your name goes into a pot for the end of the month for a $25 Visa gift card drawing. So that'll be announced at the end of the month. And we're done. It's a pan of cookies. So what I'm going to do, these cookies are ready to come out of the oven that I have. So I'm going to pull those out and show you how they look. Kind of hot, kind of hot, kind of hot. So baked cookies look like this. The pan is quite hot, so you don't want to sit them on your countertop just like that. We're going to put these in the oven, and they're going to bake from 10 to 12 minutes or until golden brown. So now, I'm going to cool off a little bit. This is a cookie rack or a baking rack. You can use a plate if you don't have a baking rack. And you would take the cookie off the rack very slowly, off the pan, put them on the rack, and you let them completely cool. I would advise, if you want to eat them hot, wait till they cool for about 5 minutes, or they will burn your tongue. They will burn your tongue, so do not eat anything hot fresh out the oven. Put that here. And we make some cookies. Dropping cookies, dropping cookies. We made cookies earlier. These are how they look. These are when you press the pecan in the cookie and when you don't use extra pecan. You want to taste one, Isaiah?
Sure.
Come to the camera and tell them how it tastes.
It tastes good.
It tastes good. So it is a very simple recipe, parents, for the kids to do. Very simple, 6 ingredients, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 ingredients. Very simple, very easy. Most of the ingredients you should already have at home. You may not have the pecans, and you may not have all-purpose flour. So my suggestion is to get a bag of all-purpose flour, get a bag of sugar, and this is something that the family can do as a whole. You can double the recipe, which means it would be 1.5 cups of chopped pecans. It'll be 1 cup of butter, which is 2 sticks. It'll be 2/3 cups of sugar. There'll be 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 2 cups of all-purpose flour, and 2 1/8 teaspoons of salt. And y'all just have fun baking. So that's it. It was a simple class. It was a simple class, and I see people chatting, but thank you all so much. That concludes our class. Is there any questions or comments? Put your comments in the chat box. And it's quite hot in the oven. Y'all know I don't do heat very well. So we're gonna sign off, and I wanna thank you all for participating and attending our Cooking Basics 101. We will have another class in exactly 2 weeks, which is our Youth Financial Literacy class with Miss Denise Simpson from Tallahassee, Florida. And she's gonna be presenting. Okay, so y'all have a great day and have a great weekend. Love y'all.
Bye-bye.
You can cut the recording. Just stop it.